A very good morning to all. In fact, it's completely my honor and privilege to be able to stand in front and thanks the organizers as well to be able to give you an overview of what we do. I run the server and cloud business at Microsoft, and in fact, the truly inspiring thing as I was going through the documents was the quote that came from our beloved and honorable Prime Minister Modi ji, where he said, like, the transformational lever for really changing the hinterland of India is the railways. An honorable minister of railways who has such a high grand vision for what we can accomplish, Shri Suresh Prabhuji also mentioned about railways being the lifeline or the veins in which pumps the life-giving blood to this hinterland. Nothing could be more aptly summarized on the power of what railways could do. And something as powerful as this railways always has some inherent capabilities and powers that have been built over a period of time. And usually using those capabilities and capacities to transform further is what every time there is a point in time which comes in to really make this transformation come alive. How do you leverage those inherent capabilities and powers? In fact, let me relate to you a story from our Indian mythology that sort of aptly summarizes where the transformation of Indian railways today is. As you all know, in our own Ramayana, when the army of Sugriva was trying to locate Mother Sita, it was the team from the south, that was Lord Hanuman and his compatriots, were all standing in and wondering whether they would ever be able to cross the ocean. In fact, Hanumanji himself was doubting whether he'd be able to even jump across that entire ocean. And that's when his colleague, and of course the leaders there, Jambavan, really made him understand that the true power was actually inherent with him. He had those capabilities and he could make that leap very easily. And once Lord Hanumanji got that advice, he was able to realize his own powers and be able to make that leap of faith go in. And at this juncture, the reason I related this tale to you is as we look at the Indian railways and the biggest ICT transformation that's going to take place there is one big strength that the Indian railways has, that it has to truly leverage to be able to make that transformation happen. And the biggest strength there is if you were to ask me, what is it? On the ICT part, what is that strength? That strength is summarized in one word: data. A lot of people don't realize the power of data that has already been captured by decades of existence of Indian railways. Your passenger reservation systems, your freight systems, the logistics, and just running this massive machinery that runs the large part of our country today has collected humongous amount of data. And when you look at something as humongous and say, okay, how can we use that to make the biggest transformation? Thanks so much to the Honorable Minister to have set the stage. As I was alluding to earlier, literally all the transformations that the Minister was talking about are, if you were to look at the underlying theme that needs to come together, is the data. These were the 4 ICT transformations that came out in the report. The number one amongst them is better passenger experience. Second one is improving our freight revenues. Third was about improving the internal and external operations, third and fourth. And if you were to just look at the huge potential that I talked about, the Hanumanji story of his taking that leap and he only realizing that internal strength, what is that big internal strength that railways carries today that literally we can leverage? And that's again data. Decades and decades of data that has come from consumer interactions, from passenger reservation systems, from freight, from logistics, from railway stations. You look at a humongous amount of data and just putting some insight, and data in its own is not the most powerful thing. Data, when it's put to use and when it's translated into actions and activities and outcomes, is when it becomes really powerful. And to be able to do that, we are now standing on the technology's edge, where earlier storing like tons of this data and all was pretty expensive. But now with the coming of cloud, you can literally give transformational experience to customers. Let me give a very simple example. An average customer who is trying to purchase a railway ticket has a waiting list, and if you were to look at the waiting list and it says the waiting list is about 24, he or she would literally go about and book 3 more trains just to make sure the probability sort of increases. Imagine using the same data from the past and doing not just analytics but predictive analytics. Right when the time his consumer is actually booking his ticket, there is a data that shows your probability of you closing this wait list is actually far more higher. The probability of wait list at 24 can actually close in much quicker than the probability of the one that is the wait list at 3 or 4. Why? Because data shows that based on all the previous experiences. The consumer experience dramatically shifts. And that's the power of cloud and predictive intelligence that can come in, where you can literally shape the way passengers experience the ways the railway booking systems and all. And of course, working with RCTC, who have just done a fabulous job worldwide. They are a leading beacon of how massive railway transactions are handled at such scale. The other example is Internet of Things. If you were to look at the example Minister shared earlier, was literally what does smart coaches look like? We are working with some of the large elevator companies in the world. ThyssenKrupp is one example, where you have sensors embedded in the elevator that gives real-time information of what's happening in the elevator. So this transformed that whole company itself. ThyssenKrupp is an elevator company. Everyone thinks they install elevators in large buildings and then sort of move out. But if you were to ask them today, what are you? They are no longer an infrastructure and elevator company. They are a high-level services company where they can actually predict 3 months before the elevator actually falls apart. They can predict when it's going to go wrong and have the right person go there and fix it much before the elevator goes on. That's their maintenance job. But imagine a smart coach that literally tells you a lot of data about itself. And these are not expensive sensors. These are sensors embedded at all places, temperature, all the expensive equipment that goes into a smart coach is transmitting data, and then you are able to analyze it and predict what's going to happen around that. That's the new world, and that's the new world of technology. We at Microsoft have been working pretty hard on having our own data centers and being able to assimilate these data inputs coming from different sources, in-house data coming from outside, and then being able to analyze to transform experiences, to transform all those 4 ICT experiences that I talked about. Better passenger experience, improving the freight revenues, optimizing internal operations, as well as having a far better, robust external operations control. If the systems are built around this robust capability and data, then having technologies like IoT, Internet of Things, having predictive intelligence, and running them all on a cloud infrastructure where the cost is so low that an average customer should not be prohibited from accessing these services in its best form. That's something we are very, very keen to work with, and we believe can be the linchpin of how this biggest transformation around railways and the big mission of ICT would happen. So again, I would really like to thank this fantastic opportunity provided by Adhikari brothers and others to have given us a place, and really if there is one inspiring mission and vision that the Honorable Minister has shared and our beloved Prime Minister has also outlined, I think it's about making this Indian economy shine. And the root of that Indian economy, or I would say the nucleus of that transformation, can come with the transformation of railways. And we are willing to do our best to partner and work far more closely to make the transformation happen.